Another session of Virtual Coaches Clinic. Again, Layson Perkins. Find me on Twitter at Coach Perkins. Today, we're talking Motion Strong with Coach Michael Lynch. Coach Lynch is definitely one of the best out there on Twitter with sharing information, his newsletters, always great content that he's put together. So really looking forward to hearing him talk about the Motion Strong concepts here. So, Coach, I'm just going to let you take it away.
All right. Thank you, Layson. First of all, I just wanted to say, how humbled I am to be asked to be on this virtual clinic series. I mean, I know I have watched a number of these presentations, and we're seeing NBA coaches and college coaches, and some really great stuff that's been presented. So, first of all, I just wanted to thank you for having me on. Secondly, also for you and Lee, the amount of work you guys are doing in moderating all these, I think is incredible. You guys putting all the work in to give coaches the chance to check these things out. So first of all, I wanted to thank you guys first, and then I'm going to get into it. Now, just, contact information I put at the end, and I also put on the screen right here. I got my email address down below, and I got my Twitter handle in the bottom right-hand corner. You spend a lot of time on Twitter. My wife would probably say too much time, but I have that down below. And I also have my website, lesterbasketball.com, and I have like a little coach's corner where I keep some blog posts and some newsletters that I do, which I think is helpful, can be helpful. So I just if that's something you want to check out after the presentation. I certainly have a lot of my Motion Strong stuff on that part of our website. So I at least wanted to mention those first. Now, I am certainly, I am a high school coach. I don't have like a laundry list of, accolades or college credentials or anything like that. But I thought I would talk a little bit about my own experience as coaching. I'm a high school history teacher. I think many high school coaches, I do think that being a high school teacher has made me a better coach. I think it's helped me teach the game better for, just knowing how kids learn. And, I think it has helped me, see maybe gaps in my teaching that, maybe perhaps if in a different profession, I might not have seen it. I also think being a teacher really helps you to adapt and adjust, practices that don't go well, games that aren't going well, being able to have a plan B and being able to adjust on the fly. I think that is something that's been very helpful, I think, in my career. I also wanted to mention, being an assistant coach. I've seen a lot of stuff out on Twitter the last few weeks about younger coaches trying to move up or trying to get their first job. And I really kind of, thought that there's a lot of value in being an assistant coach and, being a sponge and learning everything you can from the people around you. I put up here that I spent 11 different seasons coaching football and basketball at the junior varsity level as an assistant. And, I think the four guys that I observed all had things that I could pull and, use in the future. So, that would be a valuable experience. Also as the varsity coach, you do a lot of work with the youth. I've spent 8 years doing summer camps of my own. This past year I ran our grades 1 through 3 league, which I think was a really rewarding experience. I think it's a good way to, be organized, as a coach, be prepared every day, have all your ducks in a row for practices and for, emergencies and everything. And, I always think those are valuable experiences. And then, another thing is mentorship. I think it's really important for coaches, even veteran coaches, to have a mentor or to have a coaching group, people that they can lean on throughout the year. I personally have been part of Radius Athletics, Randy Sherman, who's going to speak again today later on. I've been a part of his RAMP mentoring group for 4 years now. And I think it's, really helped me, gain some clarity on how I envision the game, how I want to see the game played, and how I want to coach the game. So I do encourage people to find something similar to that they can use to help them along. Now, I wanted to just kind of get into the Motion Strong stuff from here. What I kind of thought I would talk about first is why we went towards Motion Strong, and then sort of talk about what a possession looks like for us. Many people that I had interacted with on Twitter, know that we had sort of been more of a dribble drive oriented team the last few years. Our strengths were our guards, and our focus was just on creating gaps and really attacking off the dribble. And we made the move to Motion Strong this year. And this is something I certainly wrestled with, but I thought had some real logical reasons for. Certainly one of the things is face guarding, and we had our best player who was being face guarded every single possession. And personally, I kind of felt like in some cases I just didn't have enough answers in a dribble drive oriented system. I've not that you can't find ways around that, but I did think that we needed to find a way to solve that problem. I wanted to implement more screening and do it naturally, within the course of the game. If our best player was being face guarded and I'm telling guys, go screen for him, that wasn't really part of our dribble drive system. So in order to do that, we had to, I think go to something like this to make it more natural. Our 5-man, I wanted to get our 5-man out of the porch and more involved in the offense. I often felt like, we were playing 4-on-5 in some cases on offense. With that guy in the porch, if you had a team that was really good about taking away the, or covering down from the 3-point line down to the 5-man, I felt like oftentimes we were getting challenged at the rim with no opportunity to drop the ball down. So I wanted to involve the 5-man more actively in what we were doing. I thought Motion Strong did this. We also have, I think, a couple forward types that are, were really key figures for us, but that didn't really fit into the dribble drive system, that wouldn't, we wouldn't be able to take advantage of their skill set as much in that. So that was obviously one thing. And then I'm going to comment on this in a couple clips that we see, but occupying the help, I often felt like as I'm watching games that, all 5 sets of eyes on the defense were trained on the ball, in where we had great spacing and the floor was spread. The bottom line was that all 5 guys knew where the ball was and were loaded to the ball. And, I wanted to find something that we could use that would occupy the help defense better. And I thought that Motion Strong did that. Now, what I put down here at the bottom of the screen is just basically what a possession would look like for us. We play with a 30-second shot clock. So, I don't know that changes our approach offensively at all. But I just thought, within a 30-second shot clock, this is, I think, the progression of how we would want to score. We would obviously be hunting transition opportunities from the start. We're looking for pitch aheads or dribble attacks to the middle, that kind of stuff right away. If we don't get anything in transition, we want to flow seamlessly into Motion Strong. I kind of have on the right-hand side here, the diagrams. At some point, if we didn't get the pitch ahead and score in transition, we want the ball to be changing from slot to slot, and then eventually the swing from slot down to the wing. And, that would then trigger our Motion Strong action. So hunt transition and then flow into Motion Strong. And then I did put at the bottom, I wanted to comment. We did not necessarily go away from some of our dribble drive concepts. And, I'm going to show us in this presentation the Motion Strong action and sort of how we scored out of it. But the idea would be like, if we didn't get a shot out of Motion Strong, we would simply just default to our 4-out dribble drive, spacing rules. And we would be looking to attack gaps for the rest of that shot clock, looking to get a shot here. So, that's basically what a possession would look like for us, right? Transition, Motion Strong, and then in our 4-out concepts, we kind of go from there. Now, before we kind of get into the actual clips of the action here, what I have on this page is basically the simple setup. that we used. We got 4-out spacing. Our wings are just about on the rim extended line. We have our 2 guards that are filling into the slots here. And what we're looking for is that ball to swing from slot to slot, slot to wing. I kind of got the arrow pointed up on the right-hand side, up towards the foul line extended. And then what we want to do is once that ball is swung, this is going to set in motion our staggered screen and then our 5-man flashing over to the block here. So that is the basic action that we're going to see pretty much in all of these clips here. All right, let's get into the first one. All right, now what I got to set up here first is what we would call straight cuts. Straight cuts, the idea would be, we're walking our man down and then we are coming up over the top of this staggered screen to the point, and hopefully our man is getting caught in these screens. And we're going to be able to, on the catch, either have a big or a small advantage that we can then, sort of like make into a shot or make into a drive. That ultimately is what we're trying to get initially here. And I'm going to go through some teaching points as I play the clips here. There's a good clip to start with. I like this just to play that first clip again. One of the teaching points I'm telling screeners is make the defender go over you. Make the defender go over you. That's what's going to create the big advantage or the small advantage at the point here, is to get this defender to come over the top of this screen here. You'll see in this clip, this is a perfect example of, getting a piece of this defender and making him go over. This guard gets a little bit wide up here to start with, but again, get a piece of him. That's probably a small advantage shot right there, but still, for the guy we want with the ball. Again, make the guard go over the top. It's a good place to pause. This defender did not go over the top. This defender actually snuck underneath both of these screens. And that realistically should give a perfect chance for a catch and shoot. We a few years back ran a little bit of 4-out motion, and we would talk about out cuts. And, essentially this would be an out cut. The defender goes underneath it, and it's enough room for him to catch and shoot. Now, I got a couple clips here where, we get our motion strong action. We get the straight cut up top. And this is a good place to freeze right here. He doesn't necessarily have a shot right away. But one thing we're doing here with our second screener is we are rolling the second screener to the rim. This roll to the rim hopefully is going to open up a gap now that we can sort of attack. You can see temporarily from the point to the corner, we have this double gap that we can attack off the dribble. Now, the player who catches it isn't exactly like one of our better attacking guards here, but, the gap is going to enable him to make something happen. This is a good clip. I like the spacing, right? Volleyball line spacing up top in the slots. Good gap space. That's our first game, so that's a little bit sloppier than we'll see as we move on here. This is a clip I thought I could stop quick. If you guys had a chance to check out Radius Athletics screening and cutting episode, one of the things he talked about was cutting slow. And, in this clip right here, we are not cutting slow. We're sprinting up here to the top. This is something I'm hoping we can be better at next year, is walking our man down a little slower and then really running him off this staggered screen here. Our guy number 5 is pretty good, so he scores anyways. But, this is a teaching point. Slowly accepting that staggered screen, I think, is something we'll work on next year. I think this is our last clip here. All right, so I think a couple teaching points on the straight cuts, certainly for the screeners, is to get low, get underneath the elbow, make that defender go over the top of you. And for our cutters, we're going to kind of get to them in a second, but the screeners, that I think is the big takeaway. Now, what we're going to get into now is we've gotten a straight cut, we catch it, but there's no shot and there's no drive. So what do we do from there? And what I have on the screen on the right-hand side is basically your two options. You're going to have your roll man, right? Our second screener, who we said is rolling to the rim. We have a chance to hit him on a layup. Or we attack that gap on the backside. And there's a couple clips in here that are pretty good that show us, the roll man's not open, attack the backside here, and go from there. All right, let's check these out. These are two pretty good roll clips right here to start. Straight cut. Nice roll to the rim. This is, I think is I guess one of the points I wanted to make. I thought that this kid number 10 right here was a good example of a player that was really important for us, but didn't really fit into the dribble drive scheme. But I really thought he could be good at stuff like this, setting the screen, rolling to the rim, taking advantage of that type of opportunity. He of course blows the layup right here, but the roll man I think is something we got pretty good at by the time the year ended. Now, these clips, I think, this one right here is sort of like a skip pass, right? So we get our down screen on the other side. He doesn't necessarily hit the straight cut. He throws it over the top, and that's actually an option you'll see if teams start really loading to the ball side. This is a pretty good dribble handoff clip right here. So he just straight cut. One thing I'll say with this clip right here is, here's our down screener. I would have liked for the down screener to get out now, right? You set your down screen, roll, and get out of there. He sort of sticks around, and we end up getting a drive and kick here. But, teaching point is, set your down screen, roll, and get out. Get another backside clip, So get the straight cut. This is another teaching point. Number 2 sets his down screen, and he's sort of like casually just sitting there, like, you got to set your screen, roll, and get out of here. This time the guy on the straight cut chooses to pass it down as opposed to dribble handoff, which is fine. Pass down, cut away, and we got a nice gap here to attack off the dribble. This is kind of an interesting, clip. This team right here is playing us box and one. Whoops, I gotta switch back here. This team's playing us box and one in orange here, and we are just staying with our strong stuff. And we got our post player we're working, and we got this backside wide open here. All right, I think this is our last one here. This is actually another zone too. We're just playing strong against it. They lose track of the backside. So I guess the point of our roll man backside, part of this is we want to make sure that the staggered screen is not the end of this, right? And we want to be able to keep playing and, attacking the backside at that moment, like this moment right here at the bottom is probably the moment where now we're in 4 out, drive in space rules. And I think you saw a few of those clips where we're still creating the gap and then attacking the gaps off the dribble here. Now, this is what I thought we would go to next is all we've seen so far is the straight cut. I'm not calling out these cuts in the game. These guys are reading this stuff off of how the defense plays it. I might be making suggestions as I see things or as we're in timeouts, but I'm not calling these out in the game. Now, our big teaching point here would be if your defender is aggressively beating you to the punch or beating you to the top of the screens, or he's top blocking in some cases, what we would want to do is hit the back door. I did not put like a clip of curl. I don't really have many curls in here at all, because mostly what we would see is teams are either going to get caught in it, they're going to go under it, or that they're going to be aggressive with it. And when they're aggressive, we want to put our foot in the ground, sprint to the rim, and then, of course, the second cutting part of this would be our four-man, right? The four-man's got to come back to the ball. And we'll see that in a few of these clips here too. So this is a pretty good backdoor one right away. If you pause that really quick, you'll see this kid 15 is really sprinting up to the top of this, and you probably can't hear it on the screen, but I'm screaming from the bench, backdoor, backdoor, and he gets it pretty good. This is a good backdoor clip right here. If I paused it right at that moment, here's our stagger. And this kid, number 12, this is actually the second half. And we talked about this at halftime. He was being super aggressive, coming over the top of the stagger. We said, right away, let's go backdoor. First play to get him thinking about this. And we catch him pretty good right here. Yeah, it's another team that was really physical on the staggered screen. Got bodies everywhere. But the point here is that, he's making the read to go to the rim, which opens up the backside. Here's that box in one game again. I thought this was a good teaching moment for us to stop on, was this. So here's our slot-to-slot pass. But the slot to wing is getting denied. So what I would teach them is to just bring the ball back where it came from. So there's nothing there. Either look to pass it to this guy on the left-hand side or look to bring it to him with the dribble handoff. Our guy just chooses to make the pass and then continue to go screen. Sees a switch, dives to the rim, opens up the second cutter. This is from our last game of the year. This is a really good clip, I think, of this. Sees pressure. This clip is going to pop up in the video later, but this is really good, right? Here's his defender acting aggressively towards him, put his foot in the ground, go to the rim. And even though number 10 doesn't get it, that's a great job popping back to the ball, looking for a second cut. Now, I wanted to, that last clip sort of transitions us pretty well. One of the things I said in the first part of the presentation was that we liked how Motion Strong occupied the backside defenders. And, a bunch of times during the season, we would get our slot-to-slot swing and then entry into the wing. And then with the staggered screen, we've got these back three defenders all occupied. And this really creates a nice gap for the wing player to either attack through the elbow, or in some of these clips we'll see attack baseline, and we get the drop pass with our five-man. So, again, this is not something I'm calling in a game. This is just the ball swings, player reads it, and makes the move. Backside defenders are all occupied. We get the drop pass. Again, this is, spacing's a little funky here. This is first game of the year. But same concept, right? Backside's occupied and we get the wing drive. If I froze it right here, this is sort of a great moment, right? 1, 2, 3 defenders. None of their eyes are on the offensive player, and I had, not to discredit dribble drive in any sense at all, because I really, like the concepts and within it. But this was one of my complaints was, look at all three of those eyes would be on the ball if we had not used this stagger action. So I kind of like this as a good clip to show that. It's a pretty good one more pass here too. All right, we got a couple other ones quick here. Get our swing. I think, this is a score. Maybe this is a teaching point. I would certainly promote the drive through the elbow more than I would the baseline. I don't think this is a terribly great read just because he's driving into the post player here. But, just as like a teaching point type of thing. 5 escapes out and then makes a play. Here's that clip again. I'll just let this go through quick here. But same thing, he sees a gap to drive and is able to get to the rim. All right, now we got to go to the post player here now is kind of where I wanted to head. The post player I had said in the intro was somebody that I thought was just kind of ignored in a lot of what we were doing with dribble drive. And, without the threat of a lob pass, which is a huge component of, like, let's say the college game with that concept, and without like a dominant guy who could finish through muscle and whatnot, I felt like we had to use our 5-man better. So we got kind of 2 clips in here with post-ups and then with flare screens where the 5 is much more involved in the action here. So, I kind of wanted to at least show a few of these clips in here. Actually, this is probably a good place for me to pause right before the play even starts. I also, thought that one of the things I really liked about Motion Strong was it can be really versatile. Here's a game scenario for us where we, in a timeout, put our best player in the post. And we said, all right, you just go right down to the post. You'll see our 5-man who's right here. He takes the 4 spot. And we said, let's get him in the post right here. We can isolate him one-on-one. All other defenders are involved in the stagger and let him go. And, this I think is a great example of how this can be really versatile. All right, so here's our box and 1 team again. Good job getting it to the post. If we want to connect the dots a little bit here, remember we had said second screener is going to dive, right? Second screener dives off of this, and this is a case where we actually get like a high-low. This is pretty good, kind of like connecting our pieces here. Yeah, so this is a good flow possession here, right? The ball had gotten tipped earlier. 5-man gets it out. We swing and flow right into it and get a score. And I don't think necessarily we certainly don't have a dominant postman, but I thought that we were able to use him way more effectively with this type of system than we did previously. Just good. That's not really a Motion Strong score per se, right? But starts with the post entry. We're able to get a small advantage, and that like parlays into the open shot here. So, I wouldn't say the post up is an enormous part of this, but I do think that if you had a dominant post player, Motion Strong will be a great chance to isolate his defender one-on-one. Let's take his help and get him involved in the stagger, and give the 5-man a chance to go to work here. So. That is something I think is another example of like the versatility of it. Now, this is the last sort of piece to this. What we're going to see in these clips is our player has made a straight cut. There is no shot. And what we kind of chose to do, I guess I'll get to this in the end, but what we chose to do with our 5-man is on a straight cut, he is going to then flare screen for the original passer, our 3-man. I guess this has really two benefits, right? One of it is that we would give him a chance to get a catch and shoot, right? You would immediately be able to get another option for a shot. And the other part of this is, let's say that our player did choose to attack the gap on the right-hand side, that this would occupy these two help defenders. I mean, we wouldn't have X5 sitting at the rim waiting for a shot block because he's got to deal with the flare screen that now is going on over here. So to me, I really like the flare screen. I think as the season got on, we got better and better at this. So I want to at least show a few clips of that. This is a pretty good one right here. Straight cut. Get our flare screen from 5. Steps up. And this is one I really like here. Right? Straight cut. Nice job defending it. Oops. Go back for a sec. They do a nice job defending it here. But the 5-man sets his flare. Gives him just enough advantage to sort of get the drive for the baseline. This is probably like a teaching point here too, right? Freeze. Like, look how deep he is when he catches that original swing pass. Like, it's too deep. He's got to be foul line extended so that he can make the straight cut pass or even hit the roller, right? If that was open. So that's like just a little thing, but, can make the difference in delivering the pass. All right, we got a couple more of these. These are a couple late in the year. Get the staggered screen. Not a great flare screen. Our 5-man kind of forgets to even flare. But the action still kind of creates the open shot. This is a good teaching point too. We had said earlier in the year, or in this presentation, sorry, that if they took away that slot to wing pass, bring the ball back to the action. And this is what he's doing, right? It's kind of hard to see, but on the backside, we get that flare screen and it opens up a layup. I really like the flare screen. I mean, there's certainly lots of stuff you can do in Motion Strong. If people who are familiar with Motion Strong, you have like the point series, and you have some other like more complicated actions that you could incorporate into this. And we just chose not to do that and chose to like keep it as simple as possible. I saw this flare action actually from Tennessee. Saw this a lot from Rick Barnes last year, and I kind of liked the simplicity of just keeping the backside occupied here. So, that's something you certainly can create your own version of. I just want to do one thing in this presentation and talk about how to use other sets with Motion Strong. And this is just one thing that we used late in the year. We were trying to get our 5-man into the post. So this is sort of like an ATO type of set. We just basically switch positions, have our 4-man bring the ball in, enter it, and then he's getting a back screen and diving to the rim. And that, we'd see in this first diagram. On the bottom diagram, behind that, we want the stagger action. I don't think this looks super clean in either clip here, but I think you can see where this is something that could be really effective. So here's the guy we're trying to get the ball to. Right away, we get him diving to the rim. Would have been a great clip if he made the layup here. He ends up missing a couple bunnies here, but that's the action you want, right? Dives down. You can see the stagger behind. My complaint about this clip would be, look, I want these guys to get out. Set your screen, get out. Second screen, dive to the rim and get out. This is our 5-man, so it's ingrained in his head just to go ball screen. But, that's how I would imagine it looked. Nice Barkley right here from our guy. We get a shot. So, I would not call a ton of set plays, but these were a few actions that we used out of timeouts. If teams really start sitting on the straight cuts and things like that, this is a way to kind of mix up the action, but not have your kids memorize a new play. It's the same strong action, just with a little twist to it. So, Um, that's that. Now, sort of getting to the end of where I wanted to be with the presentation here. I wanted to include on this some talk about practice. Now, this is maybe not perhaps like motion strong specific, but I think over the past few years have, I think changed the way that I approach drills and like my practice plans. And one of the things I think that's important to do is to gear everything that you're doing in practice towards the actions that you're going to see most commonly. So if we're talking about motion strong, incorporate drills, right? That really drill home the spacing. I've used the phrase habits of movement, but we're really talking about our spacing, our cutting habits, our screening habits. Incorporate those into every part of your drills. Teach the reads. You have to teach the reads of these in the offense if the kids are gonna be able to be successful in the games. And like as much as humanly possible, try to recreate the actions that they're gonna see. I kind of tried to like give some examples on the left-hand side here. In transition, and, have them make sure that they're arriving, whatever transition drills you do, like really hammer the idea of arriving in 4-out spacing, so that we can flow straight into strong and not have, like the set it up moments. Skill development, right? Like incorporate all of the, the types of gaps that you're going to create and the drives you're going to create. Think about how we talked about the backside, right? Like incorporate finishing sessions where they're making that rip through, right? Driving to the right-hand side and finishing. Shooting drills. I kind of put an example over here on the right-hand side. Let's just say you got 6 hoops, 2 guys at a hoop, and let's work on second screening and pop shooting, right? So you got 2 guys, one guy goes down, sets the screen, pops back up, catch and shoot, rotate spots, right? Even if you did this with like 2 or 3 groups at each hoop in doing this. I put like a little Freeman version. We did this a little bit towards the end of the year where I would pop in, we'd have a cutter that would put his foot in the ground and cut to the rim. I'd hit him, and then the one man would hit the screener for shots, So just a way to like shape your shooting drills, right? Around the type of actions they're going to see in the game. I mean, if your offense doesn't elicit a ton of corner threes, like why are we taking a ton of corner threes in practice, right? Like get them the shots that they're going to see most commonly. And I did put this down here, 4-on-4 cutthroat. I mean, this is something that, many coaches have talked about in their presentations. We kind of do a lot. We play a lot of 4-on-4 half court. And, the rules would be basically, 3 teams of 4. Team that scores stays. And anytime there's a dead ball, they have to start with a certain action. So I put 2 of them on here, right, that we've already seen in the presentation. 4-on-4 stagger, right? So all they have to do is start with the action. What they get from there is up to them. They just go and play from there. But we're going to start the action with our staggered piece. And as a coach, right, you'll have moments in the cutthroat where you can step in. If they're not making the right reads, you can step in and you recreate that, have them replay that scenario. Do your teaching that way while these guys are going through and playing live. Another example would be like, let's add the postman in there, right? Let's go 4-on-4 post entry. So, anytime there's a dead ball or a check it up moment, they have to start the possession with this action here, right? So we play a ton of 4-on-4 cutthroat. And I think, that's a good way to teach. Also letting them play where I'm not like micromanaging some on-air drill. I'm just kind of letting them play. I think like most coaches would say, kids love moments where they're just allowed to go at it, And so that I wanted to at least include on here as like an example of how we can incorporate that. And the last piece of this, right, was disruptive moments. In a couple of these clips, we saw moments where they didn't let us make the slot to slot down to the wing pass. We've got to be prepared to teach that. and what is our approach going to be to those disruptive moments? I can think of one game we played late in the season, and they were denying the slot to slot pass. So, what our response would be is to simply just go, and we would cut down to the corner, and the corner man would fly up to the slot and then replace him, right? But we've got to kind of prepare our players for those disruptive moments in the game. And, those are a couple examples I can think of that come up, right? The denial of slot to slot, the denial of slot to wing. We got to be prepared for what your plan is. We don't want the ball to stop just because a team is denying here. So to me, that is something that you got to make sure you include in your practice plans. All right. So the last thing I had here to kind of wrap up, I wanted to just talk about stuff for you guys to research. I mean, there's probably a lot of people in the audience that know Motion Strong well, and maybe know it better than I do. And there is an endless amount of information out there on Motion Strong, different ways to run it, different ways to incorporate the backside. And I have a blog post that I did on my website, this LeicesterBasketball.com Coach's Corner. And I titled it Motion Strong, and pretty much all the stuff we talked about in this presentation is in there. And that's a great resource. I put this slide on here, and I'll share this out on Twitter later on, and you guys can check this stuff out. Half Court Hoops has some great videos in here, and this list I put together. Radius Athletics did a bunch of stuff last year with the NBA Brooklyn Nets and the Bucks and their 5-out version of Motion Strong. A ton of stuff I found out there about, Coach Bud's Atlanta Hawks days and their version of Motion Strong. There's the Tennessee stuff I already mentioned. And I will link this in, I'll tweet this out later on so people can see this. But I also have this on my website too. And you can find all of these links and check this stuff out on your own. So that's more or less sort of where I wanted to stop. I don't know, Layson, if you had some questions that you wanted to scroll through or how.
Yeah, we do. I've got some questions here. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to get to all of them, but let me get to I hate to pick one in particular, but let me try to find as many as I can that I think would appeal to everybody. Here's a good one. Do you go straight into the Motion Strong from transition?
Yeah, that's the idea, right? That's the idea is we work pretty hard at that. We just call that flow, right? Like we're trying to flow into Motion Strong if there is no transition score. We want the pitch ahead opportunity. We want the dribble attack to the rim opportunity, but we also know there's, that you're only going to get so many transition opportunities per game. So, we are trying to flow into that. Let's just say our point guard, he attacked the rim and he gets stopped. We're looking for him to bounce the dribble out, and then we're looking to get into our 4-out spacing, and then we want slot to slot, slot to wing, and we're in it, right? And that's sort of what I want to achieve with transition. So, yeah, that's a good question, but we're definitely trying to flow into it from transition.
Also had a couple of questions about running it against a zone. Is that something that you do? Because I know I've seen it against zones before, but how do you adjust against zones?
We did. There was a few games where we stayed with Motion Strong. I will say we did not do much of that against 2-3s. And we saw a lot of zone. I'd probably say 65, 35, 35% of our stuff is against zone. That's, I guess, one of the annoying things about. I guess that's a better point about why you need to keep it simple, because you're going to see so much other stuff. We had a couple odd fronted zones, and I thought Motion Strong was decent against the odd fronted zones. The 3-2s, and like I had mentioned, a box and one a bunch in the video, and we got good scores. I mean, realistically, you're just in zones. You're just looking to move some bodies to play in space. You can do that in Motion Strong action as well as zone. But yeah, I would say sometimes that's the best way I can answer that. There were against 2-3s, that's not the approach I took. But there were some games in which we stuck with it.
Okay, another question regarded was basically around installing the offense. About how long does it take to get, I guess, your basic actions in and maybe a couple of your options?
Yeah, well, I didn't want to like bore everyone to death with my situation, but like, I coach in Massachusetts. We have a really short preseason. I mean, we're talking 2 weeks. 2 weeks, we're playing our first game, and it's like it's go time. Our preseason is short, and even this year we had our football team was really really good, and like 80% of my guys are football guys. So we lost a whole week of preseason, and then we're playing. So how long does it take? I don't think this is. I don't think the structure of it is something that is incredibly difficult to install. But obviously, teaching kids to read defenses, right, is going to be more labor intensive than running a set, right? I mean, I guess it's just like a give and take. I mean, could we be really good with one thing and hope by midseason that we're getting really good at combating the different kinds of defenses, or do you just spend the whole season adding new sets in every time defenses take one of them away? So I think if I can do it in my preseason, I think the coaches that have all the summer activities and the athletic periods, I think this is completely doable in those scenarios.
Also had several questions regarding running this from a 5-out alignment. I know I've done it before. I have a 5-out. What about yourself?
Yeah, that is something I'm going to spend a little time on this summer looking at. I think the guys I'm bringing back are all better suited for perimeter play, and that is something I'm going to investigate. I've always been a little hesitant about going to 5-out. I don't know if it's just like fear of the unknown, fear that we're not going to really get many offensive rebounds. And, we depend on offensive rebounds for a big part of our offense too. But I think it's, the only thing I really worry about with the 5-out is just high school spacing. We play on an 84-foot court. I mean, it's not, the spacing for it isn't ideal, and it's something I want to investigate. But how I think it's easy. I think it would be easy. Have your 5-man inbound the basketball, they trail to the point. You get that. You get that sort of upper wing to point to upper wing swing, and then I really 5-out might actually open up the curls and open up the back doors even more than 4-out does, because you do have that post defender still in there. So yeah, it's an interesting thing that I do want to investigate a little bit this off season. I think it's definitely doable, but just something I haven't done yet.
And if I remember correctly, I think Radius Athletics did one of his recent books. His Motion Strong book was based on 5-out.
Yes.
So coaches, I'd recommend that you check that out as well. And of course, Radius Athletics will be back on tonight doing part 2 of Motion Offense. So, Coach, again, incredible job here. Always incredible job of sharing knowledge with coaches. And any last thoughts and anything you want to share with the coaches?
Yeah, no, I think we kind of touched on most of what I wanted to get across. I think one of my big lesson, right? I mean, I've watched like over 20 of these presentations. I think the big lesson I think from all of them is you really can do anything. You can't do everything though, right? And you have to choose what it is you want to focus in on, and then really pour your energy into that. I think that I think is a big takeaway, not just from on my end, but I think a lot of presenters have tried to drive that point home too. So that would be my big piece. At Leicester Basketball, I got my Twitter handle down here. I certainly would love to continue the conversation out there today. And if there were questions in there that, we obviously didn't get to a lot of them, but, feel free to send them over and I'll answer them as best I can from there.
Great, Coach. Thank you again so much for being a part of this. For our participants out there, I saw a couple of different countries listed there that are joining us today. So again, thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be a part of this. I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting now so we can get ready for our 1 p.m. Eastern time presentation. So everyone have a good day today, and we'll see you soon.
All right. Thank you.